a very special guest today to cover a very special topic. The topic overall, I'll just kind of give a broad overview of what will be said, and then of course I'll introduce and I'll hand it over to David. But you know, as all of us in the industry firsthand, understand the issue with regard to COVID being among us and the challenge of knowing exactly how many successes we have and where our contributions go to RAPAC and RPAC, and how during COVID we're actually gaining successes and victories. And so we felt it was important to have somebody here that has first-hand knowledge to share with us not only some of the victories on the national level, but also on the state level, and to give us a little bit of a forecast as to what we can expect going into the future. So with that said, I'd like to say a few words about our special guest, David Alan Cox. I'm reading it from his bio, so please forgive me. But David Alan Cox has been an active realtor and volunteer for 15 years and works for a large firm in Plano, Texas. He serves as a regional vice president for Texas REALTORS and past chairman for RAPAC. He has served on many committees, including professional standards, member benefits, public policy, budget and finance, and the bylaws committee. Currently, David serves on the board of directors for NAR. His passion is fundraising and advocacy, and serves as NAR's 2020 Realtor Party Major Investor Chair. David is also a member of Women's Council, NAREP, and ARIA, plus a proud Platinum Investor, President Circle, and Hall of Fame RPAC member. As of 2018, he is a graduate of NAR's Leadership Academy class. When David is not serving his clients or members of the association, he spends quality time with his partner of 25 years, Tony, and his Chihuahua mixes, Brody and Bentley. So with that said, please welcome our special guest, David Alan Cox. David.
Hi, thanks guys. Thanks for having me, Louie. I got to tell you, y'all are very, very lucky to have Louie. He is very, very detailed, and he got me basically everything I needed to be successful today. So Louie, thank you, man. He's a gem. You guys better hang on to him.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So just thank you. Thank you for letting me be with you, and thank you for being realtors. Thank you for hosting an advocacy event. You know, a lot of the boards are kind of tuckered down and they're not really doing advocacy and they're not fundraising. So it's very, very breathtaking and exciting to be able to speak to you guys about advocacy today. And you're showing true leadership, which is desperately, desperately needed at this time. You know, it's so important to maintain some certainty and some peace of mind with everything that we've been going through as an association. And I truly believe it's been our profession, it's been our members, and certainly our leadership team that has led the country and will do so in the future. We will not only get through this, but we're going to emerge stronger and more driven than we have ever been before. And I truly mean that. I've told everybody I could get in front of, my office manager, the major investor council members, which we'll be meeting with later today, and local boards at the state, national, and local level, that the leaders need to understand that we don't have a do-over. We have to move forward. We can't ever look back at what's happened except for where we came from, and it's your time to shine. You're all leaders in your own right, either at your companies or at your association, even in your families. And so I will say to the local, state, national leaders, anyone, literally anyone, can hold the helm when the sea is calm. But there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And with everything that's going on, I would tell all the leaders that it's your time to shine. Lead your members, take advantage of being able to engage with more amazing people in a day, and embrace technology. And I can't really say that enough. Embrace the technology. A lot of us were kind of, oh, I don't need that much technology. I don't need it. And then it kind of just came up and slapped us in the face. And NAR has done a great job with that. Each of you, as we're talking about RPAC and advocacy, and we're going to take some questions later, I think that you each have a very unique story to tell your members today. And although we've been talking for the last 4 years about telling stories and articulating your story and really letting the homeowners know what we do for them at the state, local, and the national level, it's now time for you to tell your story. And it's time for you to get those members and let them know that we need them to invest their time. We need them to invest their voice. And certainly if they can do it at this time, we need for them to invest their money. I don't think it's ever been more important than right now for us to be very, very strong on advocacy. So the question really becomes kind of, what is our story? We've talked a lot in the past about, we talked about flood insurance and taxes, and they were taxing our commissions and HOA and condo reform. I mean, there is a plethora of issues. And you know what? We've done an amazing job on really all of those things. And I'm not saying that our story has changed, but I think that our story has evolved and it's become stronger than ever before. Going through COVID and everybody being quarantined showed us that the meaning of home and home ownership have been completely redefined. It's now the stage where we entertain our families and friends. It's our school where we teach our children. It's the restaurants where we cook so many meals and gather with our families to watch Netflix. Now more than ever, I think our 1.4 million realtors will play the most critical role to ensure that homeowners and consumers are the top priority for our legislators and our policymakers. And NAR has been a leader to fight to secure the much needed and unprecedented federal COVID-19 relief legislation that you guys have witnessed. I mean, we got legislation for independent contractors. We got legislation for the self-employed and even for the small businesses. And that is really, really exciting because we were part of history. I mean, for the first time in history, independent contractors were considered part of this stimulus package. And it is just amazing to me that we got that accomplished. Now, not only have these benefits allowed us to weather the crisis that we call COVID-19, but we really believe at the National Association of Realtors that it's helped position the hardworking men and women like yourselves in the real estate profession to lead our economies, basically our nation's economic recovery. And if you look at the statistics, the real estate industry makes up almost 1/5 of our economy, and that is huge. It's a $10 trillion business. NAR has done, in my opinion, an amazing job, and I don't think I've ever been more proud to be a realtor than right now. I mean, the RPAC dollars that we've invested up to now have allowed us to establish the relationships that will allow us to get so much accomplished on Capitol Hill. And I'll tell you this, we say this in Texas a lot. If real estate is your profession, politics is your business. And a stat that's really shocking to me is we have 136 million homeowners in the USA. And we have a membership right now of 1.4 million realtors. So if you do the math on that, that makes each of us personally responsible for 98 homeowners, their well-being, and protecting their private property rights across the country. And of course, we know why, because that's who we are. I just think it's just so important that we start telling that story. Any of the realtors who have not, and the affiliates who have not got engaged in our advocacy and really don't do more than their small fair share, it's time to get them engaged and to get them involved. And so I know Louie wants to talk a little bit about the 2020 election. And man, 2020 is not only an important year, it is an extremely important election year. And although the coronavirus definitely disrupted the way that we live and we conduct business, NAR's political operations, and of course, led by none other than Shannon McGann, has had relatively seamless transactions to the new normal. Now, we've been fortunate to continue operating much the same way that we've done before, but there's been plenty of uncertainty around the elections, and we've certainly had to embrace the technology that we were talking about. Everything will unfold in the political world in about the next, I'd say 4 to 5 months. We're going to see all kinds of circus, if you will, at the national level on that election, and it's going to be quite the interesting show to watch. I don't know if you're a political junkie or not, but even if you're not, this election is going to be fascinating with all that's surrounding it. We've got Black Lives Matter, we've got COVID-19, we've just got so much going on with the Supreme Court. It is truly going to be amazing to watch. So the story that we're telling this year is really, really huge. And I know that my state has probably put together another $100,000 just to be able to tell this story on their state level. And it is truly, truly remarkable what we have done. If you think about the people that literally would not have had any money, they would have gone into foreclosure, they would have lost their apartments. I mean, we managed to get them a stimulus package with unemployment. We managed to get them a $1,200 check right off the bat. There could be another one of those coming. I mean, it's endless. So RPAC, I mean, that's pretty much about the election, but I want to talk about RPAC. And then I kind of want to get Louie involved here, because when you're talking about your local and your state successes, I think that he's probably able to articulate them much better than I am. So I'm going to pull him in here in a minute. But we've done some changes. A lot of what you see in the traditional election cycle, as usual, particularly in the terms that we know that communicate with voters, have changed. We don't know, and we can't predict how much campaigning and basically electioneering will take place and what it will look like in the next months leading up to November 30th, but we're ready. We've got our war chest ready. And I think that's an important point to make, is to get your war chest ready before you go to battle. And we say this a lot at the National Association of Realtors. You know, when a battle comes at you and you're like, whoa, we need to mobilize, we need to advocate, we need to get our members involved. No, you need to get your members advocated and engaged earlier, so that when that storm hits, you've already got your war chest ready to go. You've got your main players, you've got your funds in there, you've got your talking points, and you are ready to tackle it. When there are fewer resources to play in the critical elections across the country, that makes our investments that we put into RAPAC, and I say that, I'm gonna say RPAC, TREPAC, RAPAC, because I say them all the time, but that makes our investments even more important to the legislators. And Louie would agree with me on this, that President's Circle, which is a direct $2,000 towards that candidate, is probably more important right now than it ever has been, because they're seeing a lot of lack of funding, should I say, in the elections coming up. So because those finances are really critical to the infrastructure and the resources that we provide, we will emerge as the significant beneficiary to the election cycle for this next election. And we should be very, very proud of that we're leading that. And, you know, we don't get involved in endorsing one president over the other president, or getting involved in realtor issues that aren't strictly realtor party. But it's really nice to be at the top and be able to lead this and let the world know that the realtors are making things happen, not only at the local, at the state and the national level, and they're making things happen right there on the floor of our White House. As the nation's permanent trade associations, with one of the most powerful political arms in Washington, and I can't tell you how strong we are in Washington. You know, we've always been strong, but I don't know whether you have got a chance to really talk one-on-one with Shannon McGann at the national level, but she is one of DC's 20 most influential women in politics. And we've got her right here with us at the top leading us, which is incredible. If you can get her for a webinar for your people, she would absolutely love to do that. And they would just eat her up. She is amazing at what she does. So let's move over to the voter turnout, and actually talk with Shannon about this. I want to say a month ago, when I had her for my office webinar along with Lawrence Yun, and she was excited about the election coming up. What she was not excited about is what the voter turnout is going to be. And of course, we don't know if they're going to allow us to mail in ballots at different states, or if they're going to do that nationally, if people are actually going to come out of their house to vote. I can tell you that I went to the polls this week for a primary election runoff in Texas, and people were social distancing. They had their masks, but it was busy and people were getting out to vote. And so I definitely hear where Shannon's coming from, but I think probably in the last 6 weeks that everything that's going on, we're gonna see a really, really big voter turnout. The president's race that we had in 2016, we had, I wanna say 6 million more registered voters than the previous president election. So I'm hoping that those numbers continue to soar. We hope they will. I would lay my money on the fact that we're going to see more voters than we did in 2016. But the process, it's going to start a little earlier to ensure that we have full and accurate participation. We're going to communicate. We've got a targeted list of voting campaign stuff going out. So they're not just sending it to everybody. NAR is spending a lot of time, a lot of money and resources on targeting that voting so that we can continue to get our realtor champions elected. And when we say realtor champions, again, we know that we're bipartisan. We're not looking at Republican or Democrat or any other party that's in the mix. The realtor champions are the ones that are carrying our water, they're carrying our torch across the United States, and they're the ones that are literally writing good policy. If you're not involved in President Circle, that's a great way to get involved in President Circle. But 3 things to know. We do have a call for action coming up in November. I'm pretty sure we're going to have one. Louie could probably help me out on that. He might have heard already. Flood insurance. I mean, we know that flood insurance has been a problem, and we keep putting a Band-Aid on the flood insurance. We were able to get a longer extension this time, but if my memory serves me correct, it's going up in September, actually November of this year. So we are probably going to see a call for action go out before the end of the year. That will not only be an important call for action to let our legislators know that we need this taken care of, and we're tired of putting Band-Aids on it, but it's also going to play right against your President's Cup and your Triple Crown. So if you're competitive and you really want to bring those home this year, that's going to be a big part of it. So we will see a call for action, I believe, by the end of the year. 2 things I wanted to congratulate you on. Louie sent me a bunch of your successes and a bunch of the stuff that was going on right now with the legislation, and some of it's been derailed, but I have to say, I'm coming from Texas and we did this, but you guys did it a lot earlier. In 2008 with Prop 100, transfer fees defeated. And guys, I know you've celebrated that since 2008. You probably talk about it every year and you should be extremely proud, but I don't know if you know exactly how important that is, because the state of New Jersey has a 7.5% interest on their transfer tax. And even on a $100,000 home, and we know there's not a lot of those left, I mean, that's $7,500 that they're going to have to bring to the closing table. And that, quite frankly, would knock a lot of people out of achieving that American dream of home ownership, which is what we do. Prop 126, also just in 2018, you got a service tax defeated. That was incredible. We see that coming in our state. It hasn't hit us yet, but the fact that you guys have defeated it gives the other states some really good ammunition to try to defeat these as well, because I guarantee you it's going to come to a lot of states. And I've used Louie's name a lot, but he'll tell you the transfer fee maybe doesn't seem like a big deal if they want to put, you know, $1 in as a transfer fee. Well, it's once they get the legislation in there, that's when it becomes volatile, because once it's on the table and once it's in the Constitution, then they can start raising it. So $1 becomes $10, $10 becomes 5%, which comes 8%, and then you've just completely blown it out of home ownership. So that is kind of what we're doing at NAR. I kind of want to go off on a little bit of a fundraising, and I know you guys had a meeting, I want to say it was a couple of weeks ago, where I talked to the AEs and the GADs, and Mary, of course, your state president, about fundraising. But guys, we have so much going on, and if you're looking to hold a fundraiser, and Louie's got all the great ideas, now's the time. We're having some fundraisers in my local board, and what I'm seeing is I'm getting money from Arizona, I'm getting money from Oklahoma, from Tennessee, and from Louisiana and Florida. And we've brought in probably $22,000 on our online auction because people from other states are investing in our auction because they don't have anything going on in their own state. So your people want to spend money, they want to vote, they want to act, they want to invest, and now's the time to really, really play on these successes that we've talked about. So Louie, I know you're there waiting by the side, so kind of jump in and talk about some of the legislation that you guys had in kind of in the pipeworks that have kind of gone to the wayside because of COVID.
Yeah, a couple points I'll make even before that. Something you said that I really wanted to support and add some weight to, if you will. First of all, is you emphasized technology in the beginning, and the fact that COVID-19 is here and it's probably here to stay for a while. In my opinion, and I think we all agree with this, it's those associations and even those regions that adapt to that reality. In other words, adapt to the technology are going to be the ones that are going to be more successful than others. in raising money. And this transcends industries, I believe. This is not just our trade association. This is all trade associations. I mean, I'm sure some of us have read some articles how difficult fundraising is, and it's common sense if you think about it. Right now, fundraising is very difficult. But I think it's not because people don't necessarily want to give. Sure, there's some uncertainty out there, but I think a lot of it is perhaps the inability or the late adaptation, if you will, to technology. And I got to say, Amanda and the team, they've all been great about utilizing technology. And I think if we continue to do that, it's going to really help and support our efforts, number one. The other thing, with regard to your question on the bills, it is true that in the legislature right now, all the bills are essentially dead. And dead is a term that doesn't literally mean dead in the political world. It means that they can come back, and they most likely will. Some of these bills will come back, assigned perhaps different numbers, maybe with some amendments, this and that, but they're not going away. And one of the things that we've been working with, at least I have on the state level, with our contact up here on the state level, is contacting legislators. And obviously they're not going into the legislature, at least not all of them, but utilizing, again, technology to do that. This is a case in point, using the Zoom platform to have meetings, things like that, utilizing text messaging to get our word out to certain staff members or legislators, or just being able to produce an infographic on with real quick turnaround time that we can give to a legislator or a staff member that they can have on a nice little iPhone or Android device, and they can see what the issue is about. So it's utilizing technology and making the information that we want to get in front of them easier for them to absorb. So those are two key points I really wanted you to, or I wanted to support that you said. Now, with regard to some of the specific bills, like I said, there's a lot of them. And, without boring anybody with some of the details, you did one, I will go into, and you mentioned, it's more of a national item, but you mentioned the flood insurance. And you're right, that one's been around for a few years. And we've just been kicking it down the road. But, in the chat box, if you saw, Amanda brought up a good point that this is a very important issue to Arizona. We have the most floodplains. I was unaware of that. Now I know. But when you talk about issues like that, unless we have the resources, the dollars behind our efforts to organize and get our word out there, our voices is much more quiet. So again, it's really important. And finally, I'll mention something that I always get this question, because I've done this for different associations in the past, help raise money, help explain how there is a connection between RPAC, for example, or RAPAC and the local associations. And David, you could probably add into this, because I by no means am an expert on this. I'm just kind of using what I've gained in the past from experience. But there's two essential prongs to where our efforts go. One is access, and that we hear about that one all the time. Our dollars and our resources allow us access to certain key decision makers, and that's critical. These are things like anything from transportation costs to lunch, whatever it is that we need just to physically, for example, get out there, or now digitally get out there. But also, one of the other prong that I like to discuss and share more with people, and this is one that's underrated, I believe, is the ability to organize. And organization can come in many forms. This is a form of organization right now, just being able to get everybody together on a Zoom platform, explain the issues, share our opinions, take questions, answer them, things like that. So again, these dollars that people put behind RAPAC and RPAC, they go to access and they go to organization. And that second component, organization, in my opinion, is critical in this element, this era rather, of COVID-19.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And so I want to talk about, and I know you sent this to me, Louie, right here. And I don't know if you've distributed this to your team over there, but so when we talked about the 2020 victories, and we talked about this literally this unprecedented legislation, I want to kind of go over the timeline just a little bit to kind of show you how busy they have been. That it was on March 12th that NAR sends the first letter to Congress advocating for the self-employed to be included in any relief at all. And Louie can send this out to you guys so you'll have the copy of it. Then again on the 18th, just a few days later, Congress passed Families First. Coronavirus Response Act. So we got it really, really quick. Again, on the 27th, Congress passed the CARES Act. Then we went on, also on the 17th, commercial. NAR sends the first letter to the IRS asking for delays in the deadlines for the 1031 like kind exchange. And that's really, really big for those guys. IRS delayed 1031 like kind of exchanges opportunity zones as well until July 15th. So they have been literally doing something every day that we have been in this COVID situation. And the team of Shannon McGann, and I really urge you to get her on a call. The team of Shannon McGann has made this all happen for us. Louie, do you guys, I want to check real quick. I want to talk about being critical. You said that you guys have been critical business the entire time?
Essential, is that what you're referring to? Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, and you said, but there was a problem with essential business, and I know we had this conversation yesterday, and a lot of what we can thank NAR for is the fact that a lot of the states were considered essential business. And before I went into this conversation, I kind of wanted to talk to Louie and say, were you guys considered essential business? Because if I were having this conversation with Michigan or Pennsylvania, they would not be very happy because, again, they were not considered essential until just a couple of weeks ago. And I don't even know if they are still essential in Pennsylvania.
David, real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to chime in because you bring something really important up here. It's true, just because we're able to deem ourselves as an industry, being essential in a particular state, even then, what we're able to do as essential service or essential businesses is different. In some states, you can't show open houses or you can't do certain things even though you are essential. So you're right, it varies state to state, and it's critical that we were able to do that here. Absolutely.
Now, did you guys have your hands tied, or were you pretty much able to do what you did as long as you followed CDC guidelines?
Exactly. We were able to do that, and it's because of our advocacy efforts on the state level. So.
Awesome.
Yep.
So I want to talk to you. I don't know how many people we have on the line or what our makeup is right now, but I want to talk to you about the program just for a minute. I'm not making an ask for trying to get you guys to give me any money today, but I do want to talk about President Circle because President Circle is absolutely an amazing program. And I got to tell you, if you didn't do it for any other reason than we're going to Maui in February, that would be enough for me because I really need some tropical island relief right now. But Amanda, she's like, echo that. The President Circle is such a unique investment opportunity, and has really excelled our relationship building and our access, as Louie talked about, getting access to those key decision makers. So when it first started, it was because Mike Brody out of Plano, he wanted to invest in directly to a candidate, and we have those federal guidelines. We can only invest so much in a two-year cycle, and your congressmen, they have to go out and raise money for their own party. And so they created President Circle for us to be able to, the investors that were already at a major investor level, to be able to invest directly in one of these Realtor champions. And what's really cool is when you get the list of these Realtor champions to invest your $500 or however much you want to do it, we usually do it in rounds. It actually has a D or an R telling you who they are, but we don't really look at that. We read what they're doing in the White House. We read what committee they're on. We read what legislation they're responsible for and what they've co-authored. And that kind of gets you to know them a little more personal. And then you can put your money where you feel it's going to do most. I never look at whether it's Democrat or Republican. What I do look at is to see the different states. And you'll get a kind of a graph of the President Circle, and I'll see somebody from Texas that's 120% of their fundraising goal, but I'll see somebody from Maine who maybe is at 70%. Well, I'm going to opt out of Texas, and I'm going to go put my money in Maine because I need for that Realtor champion to get just as much money as that person in my town over here, because they're all Realtor champions. They're all working for the same thing. So this gives you a chance to invest that $2,000 to these Realtor champions. And the way I like to tell it is, if your legislator is fundraising, that means he's over there making calls and fundraising and using his interns to do that, and he's not writing good policy. I need for them to be over there writing good policy and writing good legislation to make sure that our homeowners are protected and that we're protected in our profession. So if we can raise that money for them, it makes it all the better. It gives us much more influence, and certainly gives us a quicker and a more solidified way in to those conversations with those decision makers. And a lot of the legislators are coming to us right now saying, hey, how do we get on that president's circle thing? How do we get our name added to that? Because we really need to be on that, because they are seeing a deficit in their fundraising. So man, that has probably been the best program in my eyes that we've done in the past 10 years, is to be able to literally send a $500 check up to somebody in New Jersey. And I got to tell you, and Louie, you've probably gotten this too, typically when you send money directly to a legislator, you get a self-addressed envelope back for more money. And these guys don't send you that. They send you Christmas cards. They send you photos of their family. They send you handwritten letters that are thank you with no ask for any more money. So it is really making a critical difference at the national level for us. So I would encourage you all to look into that program. And hey, join me and Amanda and Maui in February.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one thing I'll throw in here too, you mentioned the election in the beginning of the discussion, and you're right. This is one of the elements, I think, where our contributions kind of, again, goes underrated, because most elections have, you know, relatively similar turnout. 2016 was large, but you're absolutely right. I've been reading a lot of articles and reading studies that are forecasting up to 160 million ballots being cast. That's about 20, 30 million more from last time in 2016. And that is a huge, an enormous difference. If you follow elections and politics kind of like I do, you'll realize that that is a massive, almost unheard of jump. I think even more so than in any other time in the last century, or even more. So how that connects, of course, to our advocacy efforts is it just makes them even more important, because if there's more people that are going to vote, obviously we want to get our message out to those people. And the other tail to that is that, you know, a lot of people, because there's more voter turnout, are in the, say, maybe a year, 2, 3 years down the road, are going to start running for office, because when you have higher turnout, there's a kind of like I guess, a desire to run for office from a lot of people. And of course, we would love industry advocates, our realtor partners, to run, and people that understand our issues. And if we do not have the resources and the funds behind our efforts, someone else is going to give them their message. So it's critical. So it ties into voter turnout.
Absolutely. That's why I said, you know, we've always been telling our story, Louie, but to go out there and talk to a seller now that maybe you're listing their home. And I always tell people this when I'm going to a listing appointment, you know, that's the only text I will take, is if I get a text from the realtor party, from NAR, or from my state. Yep. And they'll ask me about it, and I'll say, well, here's what we're doing, and here's what we did. And then I'll say, make sure you ask the next, are you having another realtor come in after me? Yeah, we're doing appointments. Well, make sure you ask them about this legislation and their investment level. And if that realtor doesn't know anything about what we're doing for homeowners, I just won that listing, because I've just educated my clients a lot better than just the listing appointment, but to let them know what we're doing. And so I think I don't think we've ever had a stronger story to tell than right now. I mean, yeah, we've always been the people that help people achieve the home ownership and that dream, but to be able to keep them in their homes and get them paychecks and keep them from foreclosure and really give them the things they needed during this pandemic was, I mean, unprecedented. I'm just blown away.
Yeah, it's true. You know, what you're hinting at is absolutely true. And I can say it in different words, perhaps, is that you're absolutely right. I mean, our industry is successful and professional, obviously, because of the work that the realtors and brokers and all the support staff and everybody involved does. But and that's important. That's critical. But there is this other kind of underrated, again, or hidden kind of element to this, and that's really because of the money we raise behind our message. And you're right. You know, our NAR has a huge muscle when it comes to getting our word out there to legislators. And even on the state level and local level, there's a lot of things that local associations can do with their monies that they raise to help local candidates that support our efforts in our industry. So there's a lot that goes into why we're successful. And of course, it is because of the great work that all of us do, but a lot of it is because of the money we raise, to be frank.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the money's first. I mean, we can have a voice all day long, but unless we have that money to back it up, that voice really doesn't go far. So yeah, I mean, it's all about the money. Show me the money.
Any candidate that has ever been an officer has ran will understand that. And if they don't, they will eventually. So it's absolutely true. You can have the greatest message in the world, but if you don't have the resources to build a platform to get it out, it's all for nothing. So.
Absolutely. Got that war chest.
Right.
So do we want to take some questions?
I can't see, I don't have access to the little chat bar. I'm not sure if any have come in, Marcy. If not, I do have a little question here.
Perfect.
I want to go, I'm on the laptop here at the bottom, and I was kind of reading as you were talking, and I was looking into some of this voter turnout forecasts, and again, they're huge, but maybe you can share with us, elaborate a little bit about what NAR is doing perhaps to get more people to turn out to vote. And I'm not sure if you can share anything on the state level perhaps, or in other states.
So absolutely, I can share a little bit of what the national, and I don't have all the details of what Shannon and her team are doing, but I do know that we are putting a lot of funds towards the direct targeting. So they use a company, and I'm not aware of the actual name, but they use a company that direct targets the voters that we're looking for.
Okay.
And so they have them, I want to say, I'm not the intelligent one on this, but they have them dialed down into different segments, and they're sending very specific mailers to different groups. So depending on what that group is important to that group, that's what they're going to get. So it's different mailers going out across the nation into different states that are allowing more voters to get our message and get to the polls. And they're doing a very concentrated effort on that right now. I can tell you at the state level, we use SGS. SGS is, I can't remember what it stands for. You probably know better than I do, being in government, but we've had them for 4 years. We probably spent, I want to say, upwards of $800,000 in the beginning, but now we're to like $15,000 and $18,000 a year. But from what my government affairs and my political advocacy guys tell me at the state level is, without that program and without having that list of targeted voters that we need to get our message in front of, we would not have near the voter turnout. And so they're doing very targeted messages, and they're spending a lot of money on postage right now. But you know what? It's worth it, because if it gets the right legislators in to write the right policy, then we've done our job.
And you know, and I'm sure any realtor or broker can relate to that. You want to get your message out to someone that wants to buy or sell, or you're not just going to blanket, you know, so that's critical that we're getting it to the right people, the right message, that is, especially a higher turnout. Right. There was a question that I saw pop up at the bottom. If we can share some stories in other states in which the realtors were deemed essential, but the stories were not so positive, even though they were essential. And I can start with that if you'd like. I can kind of give you a horror story. I mean, this is an example from California. So I've done some work with associations out there in LA County, and without getting into extreme detail, I'll kind of lay the problem out here. So in California, the industry, well, back up a little bit, CAR in California has a very strong lobby. I mean, they go up to the Capitol and they do a tremendous job, and they have some great advocates in the legislature supporting their efforts. And so, you know, as a result, they were deemed an essential service. But here's the problem. In the governor's order, Governor Newsom issued an order, you know, with regard to COVID-19, you can and cannot do certain things. But in the order, the authority and the power to grant more specific or restrictive practices was given by the governor to local governments, and the local governments include county and cities. Well, I don't know how many people know this, but in LA County, there's 88 cities alone, and that does not count unincorporated areas. So you have 88 different city councils establishing 88 different, more restrictive policies that vary from each other. and you have realtors selling properties in cities that are perhaps 2 or 3 miles apart. You can drive through 5 of them in 20 minutes if you've ever driven through California, Southern California. So just doing a webinar like this for an association in Southern California, you're trying to explain, 88 different ordinances, 88 different sets of rules. And it is very complicated when you don't have a uniform, policy. In addition to that, LA County, and again, let's, for example, just not even worry about the 88 cities that I just spoke about, but LA County as a whole adopted a more restrictive order than the governor's order. And what that meant essentially is that you cannot show open houses. Bottom line, there's a very small window in which you're able to, but you have to meet a threshold of 3 points. One of them is you have to prove that you were not able to do it virtually. And how do you prove it is vague, and what if there's a technology issue, all these things. So to the question that I saw, have we heard horror stories or difficulties? Absolutely. When you don't have those dollars or those efforts uniformed and targeted at the state, it makes it very difficult.
Yeah, I've heard both sides. I've heard a lot from Michigan and from Pennsylvania, who quite frankly emailed and said, we want our money back. I mean, we want our RPAC dollars back because y'all haven't done anything for us. We're not essential. You haven't fought for us. And, it's heartbreaking because it was left, to the locals in the states. And in my own county, I live in Dallas County, but my office is in Collin County. And so the judge in Collin County made all businesses essential in Collin County. And in Dallas, you couldn't even walk through, like you couldn't even leave Dallas to get to another part of the world because you weren't supposed to come out of your house. So it did create quite a cluster. I mean, right. Until finally the governor took over and said, that's it. I'm laying down the law. Now, the one really cool thing that we had come out of Texas, guys, and I'm sure you can all appreciate this, is we now have to-go liquor from all of our restaurants. So we can go in and get to-go drinks and take them with us forever now. That's now in our laws. So, that's something small coming out of a pandemic, but hey, we like to do that.
It's a great small thing. But, the other part to that is we're all sympathetic and we understand the reasons for perhaps in California's example, the governor granting the authority to local government. It's about local control and home rule, and they know what's best, and we get that. And that's not the argument. That's not what we're trying to say. What we're trying to say more so is that we need a uniform voice on the association and state level to go with a unified message to explain why we need to do certain things certain ways with common sense precautions. So,
absolutely, yep. Absolutely. What did you say? Did you have a question? I saw Amanda type something.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I'm sorry, I was kind of, yeah.
I was seeing if she had a question. She had to leave. She's got an advisory board in 10 minutes or something.
Oh, yeah. No, that wasn't a question. She was just thanking everybody and saying that she was going to step off in a few. But
Gotcha. All right, guys. Well, y'all have any questions? Because, I mean, we can talk all day. I know Louie, we can talk about politics all day long.
Yeah, but no, I think, Marcy, I mean, we are kind of approaching the end here. And if there are no other questions, I think we had a great discussion. We'd love to have David back at any time if you're open to that.
Sure, absolutely. And I want to tell you guys something. If y'all are doing an event, I loved what you did at the beginning by having your sponsor with Cutco. And by the way, I use Cutco knives. We're finding that our sponsors really, really enjoy this because while they might have paid, I'm just throwing out a number, $500 to sponsor an in-person event, they could pay whatever amount they're paying now and they can get in front of a larger audience. And so whenever you can bring one of your, your partners on, one of your wonderful service partners, affiliates, get them to do that and get them engaged because they really are looking for that right now. And so I loved it that you did it at the beginning.
Yep, that's a good idea, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything y'all want, if you want me to attend a fundraiser, I'm always on Zoom. So I told Louie, I said, making sure the time, because I'm in 3 different time zones every day right now. So I have to make sure the Zoom times are right. But you guys are awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. We appreciate it. And you were very accommodating and made it easy for us to put this on and organize. So again, we definitely appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Bye, guys.
Okay. All
Bye-bye.
right. We'll see you. Thank you. Take care.